All right, YouTube, it is Mr. Mean coming at you this fine Monday afternoon. I just got off work, and I wanted to whip out a video before I have to go pick up the kiddo. We'll do all our shout-outs and everything at the end of the video, but for right now, let's jump right into it. Today's video RPG du jour, again, a blast from the past, but yet new. I started with this version of Legends of the Five Rings. This is the Gen Con edition back in, 1996. This was signed by Brian Snowdy and John Wick and Edward Bloom and DJ Trindle and Greg Stoltz and a whole bunch of cool people. I think I even got, Steve Swarner signed it in the back there, if you can see that. So this was the special. This is L5R second edition. By far my favorite version of L5R. It might even be first edition. I'm not quite sure. I don't remember. It's been that long. It's been a long time ago. 1996, guys. Come on. Some of you weren't even born yet. But yeah, really cool. Very happy to have this in my collection. You can see the rest of the Savage Worlds books down there. I have every iteration of Savage Worlds. I have the first edition, the second edition, which was my favorite. I have the D20 version, and then the fourth edition, which I guess it was third edition, which they kind of changed the format. It was still a roll keep system, and then they went to a fourth edition, which was a lot of modifiers, plus and minus this and blah, blah, blah. Still did a roll keep session, but it really wasn't for me. But the books were beautiful, and I have a number of the books back there, which I think are gorgeous. And then they went to the fifth edition, which they farmed out. AEG gave up on their role-playing games, and they farmed it out to Fantasy Flight Games. And Fantasy Flight picked it up. And they had done a call, I think a year and a half, 2 years ago. They did a call for beta testers. And I signed up because I'm a Fantasy Flight GM and everything. So I've run a bunch of their games at conventions and stuff. And so I got in on the beta, and I got the files, and I started reading it. And I was immediately turned off. It did not have the flavor that I knew as Legends of the Five Rings, which is some D10s. You roll and keep, whatever your rings, you roll you grab a bunch of dice equal to your ring and your skill, and you add them together, and then you roll and you keep your ring. And that was the system that I knew and I loved. And they started talking about all these funky dice, and they were going to go to a D12 with D6s, and I'm like, no, I'm a D10 kind of guy. I don't like D6s in my role-playing games for the most part. And I always say that, but I always seem to, after I say that, I go back and find this really cool D6 game that I like, or the mechanics that I like. Feral Games Inc. Makes a number of games where they use either a percentage system or a D6 system, and I seem to like all of his games. So what do I know, right? But anyway, I got the playtest documents and I read them, and I mean, it had the flavor of L5R, which was still good, but it didn't have that. Whatever that was that first and second edition had. And I felt that third edition and fourth edition had lost it as well. When you start adding all these pluses and minuses, and you get a plus for this and you get a minus for this, the game lost its eloquence to me. The first and second edition were very fast. They were very lethal. You could die from one hit, which, hey man, you're walking around with a 4-foot razor. What do you expect? People are going to get cut in half. They're going to die. So it kind of, that was kind of the joy of the game, as they say, rattling your saber, rattling your katana, basically a lot of talk and no action. And this game seemed to, if you had these murder hobo players, they spout off to the wrong crane or the wrong crab, and they might just get their head bashed in, if they're lucky, to not just be outright cut down. And then, of course, you run into the problem of, the GM's being a dick. Well, you're in a feudal society where honor and face is everything, and you're supposed to act a certain way. Society dictates that you be polite. You don't have to be a polite person, but you have to act polite. And you have to have a smile on your face, and you have to treat your betters better and your lessers with respect. And the game really, second edition and first really set that tone for me. And Brian was my GM for a long time, and then I started running the game, and I loved it. And it is in my top 3 favorite RPGs of all time. Top 3. It might even be number 1. If not, it's number 2 for sure. But it's definitely in my top 3. But that being said, I read the playtest documents and the books and I wasn't impressed. I wrote it off. I said, nope, no interest. This is bogus bullshit. Fantasy Flight's adding, proprietary dice, and I was against the proprietary dice, even though I love Star Wars. You can see I've got the books back there. You can see them on the shelf. Or can you? Yeah, there's Edge of the Empire, the white books right next to the D&D books right there. Right there. And I love their proprietary dice system. It uses a standard set of polyhedral dice, except that the numbers have been replaced with symbols. And to be honest, at first when I got Fantasy Flight's Edge of the Empire, I was a little put off by it because I was like, ugh, proprietary dice, bah, and then I started playing it, and then the dice really, really added to the flavor of the game. And then I started GMing it, and even more so. And so I thought, well, maybe proprietary dice and Legends of the Five Rings won't be so bad. But then I saw the dice, and I to be honest, was not impressed. They were funky symbols. They weren't even close to anything that Fantasy Flight was using with their other games. And so I thought, this even gave me an even worse bad taste in my mouth. So I wrote the game off for well over a year. And then I just happened to be talking to some friends on Discord, and they were like, ooh, L5R is awesome. The new version is fantastic, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, it's not for me. And, I explained it to everybody, and they're like, oh, dude, you're wrong. You got to go check it out. And so Miniature Market was having a great sale about a month ago, and so I was able to pick up, I bought the dice. I got the core rule book, and then of course no GM would not be caught dead without his guide to the Shadowlands. So the Shadowlands, the essential guide to the dominion of he who should not be named, Fulang. But anyway, first of all, typical Fantasy Flight. The books are gorgeous. They are absolutely beautiful, and this was the last Fantasy Flight RPG that they were going to do because they had sold off to another company, and I can never remember what the name of the company is. It's nice though, on the back of the book it does tell you that there's a dice app, so if you don't want to buy the funky fiddly dice, you can use your iPad or your iPhone or your Android device, and you can tablet, you can roll the dice via the app, and it's pretty legit. I have seen it. I do not own it because I own the physical dice. But it's pretty sexy. There is a Foundry VTT support for this. It's all done by contributors. It's not official as far as I know, so take that with a grain of salt. But if you're playing on Foundry or you want to play on Foundry, it appears that you can. They have the dice imported into Foundry for what it's worth. Now, I don't know if they have the Dice So Nice module, or if they're just, it's just text-based dice. I'm not quite sure, but I will say that I'm thoroughly impressed with the book. Hardback, $54.99 was the cost of this book, and $39.95 was the cost of the Shadowlands book. They are full color, hardback, parchment style paper. It is gorgeous. I believe, there's no map in the core book, and I do not believe there is a map in the. No, there's not. But it is like the watercolor done in like Japanese style paintings of ancient. The art in the book is very muted color, but it is in color, and it's all done kind of in that style, almost like of a watercolor. But it's very well done. There's no buyer's remorse as far as the quality and the look of the book. The dice mechanic is still a roll and keep system, but you're now using the D6s for your ring or your traits, and then the D12s for your skills. And I'm not going to go into what all the symbols mean. I think it'd be enough in this like little review or talk about to tell you that all the icons mean something, and that they enhance the storytelling. And I kind of did a mock combat with two of the NPCs, a Shadowland NPC and a Crab Bushi, which is basically a samurai for those that don't know. And I can kind of see where the funky dice come into play and where it gives it kind of a flavor, especially if you're doing like a courtly intrigue kind of game. The proprietary dice give you that funky flavor in a good way that will help you storytell more. A lot of times role-playing games digress into a kick in the door, kill the monsters, take their loot, move on to the next room. What bigger and badder treasure can we get, and to fight bigger and badder monsters? L5R is different in that aspect, that you can play that kind of game. If you want to play a bunch of crab or lion, and you go into the Shadowlands, which is like the bad place for those that don't know, and you want to just kill monsters, you can totally do that. You can make this a martial game full of combat and violence, and if that's your thing, you can do that. Just be aware that you may not live very long, because there are bad things in there. Now again, it's up to the GM, and the GM's going to set the level of the antagonist and everything, but a lot of, even a peasant with a spear can kill you, because if the dice roll their way and you don't roll well, you could be dead. It's a lethal game in that aspect. But where this game really shines is in the courtly intrigue. And most people that know me and know my GM style, I'm not into that kind of stuff. But with Legends of the Five Rings, I really dig it, because it's one of those games where you got to be careful what you say, because you could put yourself in a situation where you have to kill yourself as a character. If honor demands, if you say, I will do this task for you, my lord, and if I fail, I will give you my life. And you go out to do that task, and let's just say you fail. Well, the GM, as the lord, has the right to say, you told me you would give me your life. Fall on your sword. And if you question, if you say, wait a minute, you've already defaced yourself, you dishonored yourself, they're going to cut you down like a dog. In my game, other GMs would play it differently. You could very easily play it as, oh, okay, so you're not a man of your word. You're not a samurai of your word. So no matter what you say from here on, I don't believe you until you prove to me that you are a man of your word. And the only way you can do that is by killing yourself. Commit seppuku and regain your honor. So the game is very dark in that aspect, but it's also very bright. It's very light in the fact that you can do great things. The player characters are enabled. They are heroes, and the game goes to great lengths to emphasize that, and to you can't just walk around and cut somebody's peasant down. You go into a foreign clan's territory, and a Hemin, a non-Bushi, bumps into you, and you just whip out your sword and cut his head off. You can totally do that. The problem lies not in the fact that he bumped into you, and not in the fact that you cut his head off, but now you have to answer to that person who owns that person. It's not slavery, it is the caste system, and you have to explain to them why you killed this person, that maybe that's the pig farmer, and now you've killed the pig farmer. Now that lord has the right to ask you, are you going to pay to tend my pigs? And so it brings up all these questions and these loyalty and honor and respect, which I think in today's society we are sorely lacking anyway. So this is a great way to get young people involved and realize that one of the sayings in one of the earlier versions of L5R, and I'm sure it's probably in here somewhere else, is you own every word you speak. And that sounds, whatever, but it is literally true. You own every word you speak. It's just one of those things that it's always caught me. The Dao of Shinsei. Shinsei is this monk in the game, in the history of the game, who was very wise beyond his years, and he gave direction and a purpose to the original clan members and the early founding members of all the clans. So it's just a very cool game if you're into that. If you're into martial arts, if you're into Taoism, or you're into Bushido, or any of the Asian beliefs. They kind of have a place in here. It's not gospel. After all, it's a role-playing game. You take it as such, but it leads to very polite play until it's time to not be polite. Because remember, as a samurai or a shugenja is a samurai, but they practice the way of magic. And so instead of swinging a sword, they sling spells, and they're just as deadly. And what's nice about it is, everybody's polite. The old saying, an armed society is a polite society. That is exactly what's going on in L5R or Legends of the Five Rings. You can go around and talk a lot of shit, but if you can't back it up, you will be dead or seriously hurt or beat. And so you learn to keep your mouth shut and to only talk when it's time. And I don't want to say that today's society is sorely lacking that, but today's society is sorely lacking that. And this is kind of a game that I think helps emphasize that. So it's got a lot of cool stuff in here. It's a great toolbox. I think the book is laid out really well. The character sheets are nice. Of course, everything's downloadable now. You can get these in PDF. You can get the physical books. You can go to their website and you can download the character sheets and all the play aids. There's a bunch of pre-generated characters. There's a bunch of starting adventures and stuff. There's some pretty decent support for Roll20 or Foundry or Fantasy Grounds. So I think you'd be well set, depending. With COVID lightening up a little bit and things getting a little bit better in and about town, we're starting to get back to more in-person games. I know I've had all my vaccinations. My wife has had hers. My local gaming group, I think everybody has had theirs now as well. So we're feeling pretty confident that we're going to get back to the actual table and start playing. And I'm hoping that this is one of the games that I can bring up and they can play, because I think they would really, really enjoy it. And I got to say, I haven't got to use the dice yet except in my little mock play, but I've enjoyed what little I had, because it does add, just like in Star Wars, it adds that role-playing feeling and gives you some variables that you can look at and go, oh, it makes you think. And I think anything that makes you think and organize your thoughts in a different way than what you normally would, as opposed to just like rolling a D12 and going, oh, I got a 6. Now you're like, oh, I got a setback, and now I have to think about, why, what's the repercussions of this. And it's just a cool mechanic. I'm not saying I want all my role-playing games to use, funky proprietary dice with symbols instead of numbers, but in certain circumstances where the rules support it, I think it's really good. And in this case, I retract all the negative things I said about Legends of the Five Rings, and I tell my good friend Brian and my friends on Discord that have told me to get it. I thank you guys for urging me into the right disposition of mind to go ahead and pick it up, because I'm very happy that I did. The character sheet is you're looking at 336 pages in the core rulebook with a complete index and a table of contents. Like I said, the art is beautiful. The book is laid out really well. I can't say enough good things about the actual look of the book. Everything you need, you can just get by with the core rulebook and a set of dice, or the app if you want to use that. There's enough information in here to get by. They give you a bestiary, with some NPCs and some common threats that you'll run into. And then, of course, the Book of the Shadowlands, again, hardback as well. We're sitting at 144 pages, fully illustrated, and this has got everything from dramatic persona to your crab people and dignitaries that would be stationed along the Caillou Wall. That is a wall that separates the dominion of Fulang from the Empire, and the crab are the clan that protect that wall. But we have, zombie samurai. Obviously, if you die in the Shadowlands, if they don't put jade in your mouth or cut your head off and burn your body, you're coming back as an undead. So obviously you don't want to die in the Shadowlands. Jade, for whatever reason, seems to have a mystical property to fend off the effects of the Shadowlands. So obviously no one goes into the Shadowlands without jade. And unfortunately, it's the downside is the jade deteriorates over time as it's in the Shadowlands, so you can't reuse it. It literally crumbles to dust as it gets, the goodness in the jade gets absorbed, I guess, by fending off the Shadowlands taint. So you have 5 ranks in the game, and you progress through those ranks as a player as well as monsters. So the GM has a tool to gauge how tough something is versus, against you. And it's just, it's really well done. I love the NPC stats because it's the 5 rings. It's the 5 rings and then some numbers and some skills. And that's pretty much all you get. If they have special powers or traits or whatever, you'll get those as well. And a little flavor text underneath, as you can see right there. So that's an NPC. And yeah, it's really well laid out. I think it's a gorgeous set of books. I don't have all the books. I don't plan on buying all the books because I'm not actively running it. But I can see if Miniature Market or Game Nerds or somebody's having a sale. I don't see that I wouldn't pick up a couple extra books. Like there's the Book of Rokugan of the Emerald Empire. I think it's a pretty thick book, and I'm pretty sure they're going to come out with individual clan books as well. And so I'll definitely probably pick those up as time permits and as the prices drop on them right now. Fantasy Flight's books tend to be a little bit on the pricey side. A lot of the times the core book will be a little bit cheaper, like the L5R book. Like if this was a Paizo book, this would be $60 easily, and it's $49.95. So I misspoke earlier. It's $49. So this is $50 for 300 and something pages. So that's again a little steep from my point of view, but still a decent enough value because of the hardback, the way the book is created, and the art inside is spectacular. And we all know art is not cheap, layout is not cheap, and they've done a fantastic job on this book. So this is definitely a buy in Mr. Mean's catalog. I'm happy to have it in my collection. I hope to get it to the gaming table and to play it. But I hope that answers your questions. If you have any other questions, put them down in the doobly-doo. I try to answer everything, as everybody knows. I try to reply to everything that is sent to me. So that is pretty much the end of the review and my thoughts on Legends of the Five Rings. I did want to give a shout-out to a new listener. Let me just open up my app here on my phone and check things out. All right, so we are at 891 subscribers. So first of all, a huge thank you to everyone who has subscribed in the last week. A big shout out to Grim Graham. We had a nice little conversation about the Black Iron. So thank you to your comments and everything. I really appreciate it. And then a new subscriber was Justin Bell. I think he was a new subscriber as of last week. And then Engders, I think I gave you a shout out last week as well, but big shout out to you as well. So thank you guys for subscribing. We're 9 members away from hitting 900. I'd like to hit 1,000 subscribers this year for the year of 2021. So please let your friends know if you liked it. Thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. It's talking head syndrome. It's not that amazing or fun, but I hope I impart a little bit of knowledge on you. And if you enjoyed it, maybe go out and buy the book. And if you bought the book, tell them, Mr. Mean sent you. And if they don't know who Mr. Mean is, just point them to the YouTube channel. So I hope everyone is doing well out there. Remember, wear your mask. Even though we're coming out of this pandemic, it looks like we're still not out of it. So if you haven't been vaccinated, please protect yourself and your loved ones and the people around you. Other than that, as always, peace and hair grease. And remember, Mr. Mean says, as always, be nice.